Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Really quickly, oh boy, really quickly, I do want to talk about the other perspective of LSU Florida. LSU again wins 52-35, and Jaden Daniels has that incredible performance that I just told you about, 600 plus yards of total offense, 5 touchdowns, all that good stuff. Well, I bring it up because there has to be another side to that. And while you don't want to take anything away from Jaden Daniels, we also have to acknowledge something. In a year where Florida started off bad all the way back in August, it is now week 11. There are 2 games left. The Florida Gators sit at 5-5. I'm just going to say it. It was another really bad moment in time for Florida, and overall just a really bad day and a really bad couple weeks for Billy Napier and the Gators. Doesn't mean Billy Napier is getting fired tomorrow. Doesn't mean he even should be fired. But what I'm here to tell you is every single game the Gators play, it becomes increasingly clear to me that bluntly, he's probably not the guy at Florida. First of all, let's just go back to Saturday night, okay? And again, I don't want to dismiss what Jaden Daniels did because it was so incredible and you feel so terrible. You feel bad discrediting him by talking about Florida. Jaden Daniels was incredible. We just talked about it. We don't need to go over it again. At the same time, though, I'm just going to read you the stats from the Florida offensive perspective or the Florida defensive perspective. Okay. Florida on Saturday night against LSU, and I get LSU's offense is elite. Florida gave up 701 yards of total offense. 701 yards of total offense. And here is the crazy part. It gets even worse. You don't think it could get worse. It does. 372 yards passing, an average of 14 yards per completion. 14 yards per completion, gave up 329 yards rushing, 9.5 yards per completion. So essentially every single play that LSU ran essentially resulted in a first down. That's not obviously literally true, but they gave up 14 yards per completion, 9.5 yards per carry. That is abominable. I know we just used that word to talk about James Franklin, but that is abominable. That is embarrassing. And here's the sad part for Florida, is that this is just the latest embarrassing thing in a season full of embarrassing moments for the Gators. Go back to week 1. I know it was Utah. Utah's pretty good. Utah's also a 7-3 team that has lost 3 times in their league and easily could have lost a 4th to USC a few weeks ago. Utah's a team that got destroyed by Oregon. Utah's a team that has lost other games. They kind of punked Florida. They kind of beat them up at the line of scrimmage, and they won a game convincingly that wasn't even that close. Here's the problem, though. Just think about the rest of the week. It keeps getting worse. The rest of the year, it keeps getting worse. First of all, a few weeks later, they get back on track. They beat Tennessee. Everybody thinks they're doing good. Then they lose to Kentucky when Ray Davis has 280 yards of total offense, or 280 yards rushing, excuse me. So Ray Davis, 280 yards rushing, a record-setting day in the Bluegrass. Then last week, by the way, they barely survived South Carolina, who's terrible. They get destroyed by Georgia. And then last week, they lose to Arkansas at home. It was and is Arkansas's only SEC win of the year. Arkansas proceeded to follow that up by getting destroyed by Auburn at home. Shout out Hugh Freeze. We'll talk about him maybe in a minute. But I bring it up because every week is a new embarrassment for Florida. You're losing at home to a team in Arkansas you should never lose to. You're giving up 700 yards of total offense to LSU, 280 yards rushing to Kentucky. And it comes back to something I've talked about with Billy Napier. I know that Dan Mullen left a mess. No one is denying that. But Florida football should never be this bad. And I know they're 5-5, and in theory, they can go to a bowl game. We'll get to that momentarily. But Florida football should not be this bad. And Billy Napier, we're in the transfer portal era. I've said it before. Billy Napier has had 4 transfer portal cycles since he took over to fix this roster. The winter when he took over in the winter of 2021 into 22, the spring of 2022, the winter of 2022 into 2023, and then the spring, this past spring in 2023. That's 4 transfer portal cycles, plus obviously 2 full recruiting classes. And I understand the 2022 class, you were way behind when you got the job. I'm not saying you got to beat Bama and Georgia, because all these schools with first, second year head coaches, even in the portal era, have holes. LSU's defense, USC's defense, Colorado's still pretty much a mess everywhere. Auburn has a lot of places to get stuff worked out. Nobody's asking you to get things figured out, but Auburn by the way, Auburn in the much tougher SEC West just got bowl eligible by beating the same team that you lost to at home the other day. So don't tell me it's strictly the schedule or strictly the SEC. This is on Billy Napier. Couple other things. One, it ain't going to get any easier because you got Missouri on the road and Florida State at home to end the regular season. That's a combined 19 wins, by the way. I think, 18 wins. I think Florida State is 10-0. I think Missouri's 8-2, if my math is correct. So that's a combined 18-2 you're going up against. But you know what the really bad part is? You know what made Saturday the worst day ever for Billy Napier? It's that Billy Napier's been selling all offseason, or he hasn't been selling it, but his supporters have been selling, well, he's killing it in recruiting, so we got to give him the benefit of the doubt. Well, guess what happened a little bit before kickoff of this game? A 5-star defensive lineman flipped and is now going to Auburn. A 5-star defensive lineman has now flipped and is going to Auburn. And so you've been selling that, oh my goodness, well, at the very least, we're going to get things figured out and blah, 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 blah. And we got the recruiting class coming in. And trust me, the recruiting class is still good. It's still ranked 4th in the country, according to 24/7 Sports. DJ Lagway is still a dog as a quarterback recruit. But at the same time, one of the backbones and bedrocks of that recruiting class, a player by the name of Jamonte Waller, has been committed to you since the summer and flipped right before this game. And so here's my question. You're getting embarrassed on an almost weekly basis. You're losing to teams that Florida should never lose to. And oh, by the way, the recruiting that was supposed to be your area of expertise, the thing that was going to save you, you just lost one of your best recruits. Crazy time at Florida, tough time for Billy Napier. And I don't know how this gets fixed. I'm not saying he's going to get fired this offseason. He's not. But you start looking at that schedule next year. They got Florida State and Miami out of conference, plus a new loaded SEC slate because, of course, how things break with the scheduling with Texas and Oklahoma coming in. So all of a sudden, the schedule somehow gets tougher because you're no longer in the SEC, or you're no longer in the SEC East, excuse me. And you also have Miami and Florida in the out of conference, Florida State in the out of conference schedule. Let me see if I can find the schedule really quick, because you guys are going to think I'm crazy when I read you this schedule. Here's Florida's 2024 schedule as we get set for next fall. In the out of conference, they open the season against Miami at home. They have Central Florida. They still play Georgia. They play Florida State to end the year. They still have LSU, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and they do have a game at Texas plus the return game to Tennessee. So you talk about a crazy schedule. Miami, Florida State on the road in the out of conference, plus Central Florida. And then on top of that, in conference, you have at Texas, at Tennessee. You obviously have the Georgia game that gets played every single year. You still have LSU. You got Ole Miss. You got Texas A&M. Billy Napier, I try to defend you, buddy. You got to start winning some games that matter. You got to start being some competitive. You have to stop being embarrassed every single time your team takes the field. We'll see what happens.